there are two different ways that I can discuss Lost Child by D.S. Butler. The first is with my editor's hat on. The second is, I guess, with my heart as a reader. This is the second D.S. Butler novel that I've read, to the best of my recollection, and I will be reading another one, I have to say that. I did enjoy this. I enjoyed the previous one, which was Her Missing Daughter. This one, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I will say that it's definitely divided my opinion. So as an editor, I would say this needs a lot of work. The grammar is not great. The use of commas is really, really agitating. And the vocabulary is very repetitive, even within the same paragraph. To give you an example, this isn't a spoiler. The character said something the narrator said something along the lines of, I took the bottle of little pills and took one of the little blue pills. That's not a spoiler. But just the constant repetition of the same words, the same phrases, there's like no real effort made to mix up the language to make it more engaging. So that was a bit frustrating. But the actual narrative is really gripping and really compelling, and although I did work out who did it, or at least I had my very strong suspicion with who did it, I didn't really understand why and how, I guess, more importantly. So that was quite interesting, though, even though I kind of had my strong suspicions, even though I was right, and I very rarely am right with these things. So that was a nice feeling. It wasn't set in stone when I realised that, and it did take me a bit of time to kind of piece the bits of the puzzle together. This is a narrative about a child who has gone missing. Jenna was taken from a school fair when she was 2 years old, or 3 years old, sorry, and now 2 years later, somebody has sent her Aunt Beth a picture on her phone of what Jenna would look like now, and for one reason or another, that is explained in the book. Beth is working in Dubai. She leaves Dubai, goes back to the UK, obviously to visit her mother, and to try and find out who sent this picture and whether or not it's a genuine picture of Jenna, and if it is, where is Jenna and what happened. And that is compelling. I think the execution of the narrative is brilliant. I think the whole Beth having gone over to Dubai thing was not necessary. It did give her a bit more depth, and there was a relatively interesting reason for it, but I will say that bit was never wrapped up. We can kind of assume what happened with her life in Dubai, but I can't say any more than that without spoiling it, but I feel like that thread was left hanging at the end. Wasn't that concerned, not that big of a point of the narrative, but it would have been nice. She never even heard from anybody in Dubai throughout this, apart from, I think, one time her boss got in touch with her to look for something. But apart from that, nobody in Dubai actually contacted her. It's like that part of her life didn't exist. You could argue it's because of what happened with her phone, but then she did make it very easy to get her mobile phone number. So, I don't know. The other question I have is, how did the person who sent the picture get her phone number? Now, it's possible that this person got the number from somebody else. It's possible that the person got the number from Facebook, which is where she shares her new phone number. But I feel like that would be a really odd thing to do, to put your mobile phone publicly on Facebook if you had no actual reason to do it beforehand. So that was something I think a little bit more explanation about which would have been good. But ultimately, I really enjoyed the narrative. As a protagonist, Beth is mostly not that annoying. I quite liked her, I got on with her well, but I think towards the end, she started to make really stupid decisions. There is also another character who is in this who, I can't really say who it was without instantly telling you that that person could not be a suspect. But there was another character in this who just didn't have a conclusion. This person had their own story, their own problems, and we never found out kind of what the outcome of that was, or what was true and what wasn't. So I found that basically what I'm trying to say is really interesting narrative development, really thoroughly enjoyed it, although I worked out who it was, or who I assumed it was, quite quickly. My suspicions weren't confirmed until quite near the end, so that was good. Kept hanging right until almost the end, but I will say there were some threads left dangling. None of them were crucial threads, but it would have been nice to have closure on those various different aspects. Ultimately, I do recommend it, but just be mindful that the grammar, the vocabulary, the punctuation, it's not great. Oddly, towards the end, and I only noticed this in the last few chapters, there was a distinct lack of question marks when a character asked a question, or if the narrator, who is our protagonist, asked herself a question. Question marks just weren't there, and I'm not sure why. So as an editor, I'd love to get my hands on it and red pen it and actually fix it, because I think it is a really fabulous narrative. As a reader, I was gripped. I didn't want to put it down. I was engaged. And I'm satisfied with the outcome. I don't feel like it was too forced. I feel like it made some sense. It was explained well enough. Although there was one thing that wasn't explained again. It was kind of glossed over. And there was no real explanation for it either, which involves money. I can't say any more. But again, that was kind of slightly hinted at what could have happened, but there was no real explanation for it. Ultimately, though, I enjoyed it. If you like stories about missing children, psychological thrillers with female protagonists that are not that annoying, I think Lost Child is a good one to go for. And as I said, I have read, this is my second D.S. Butler novel. I have downloaded another one onto my Kindle, ready to read. Definitely a fan of the narrative. Something that I would thoroughly recommend there.